Okay, and we are back with a game I have never seen before, but am looking forward to, Goof Troop. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about it?
Goof Troop is actually probably one of the better co-op games, and speedruns in particular. You'll see actually a lot of stuff. It's kind of, I'll explain it as we go along, but it's a really underrated speedrun. If you have like a friend or girlfriend or something like that, you should definitely play it and run it with them. If we're good to go, I can obviously count down and let you guys know, but are we good to go? Sorry.
You are good to go whenever you are ready there.
Okay, so I'll say 3, 2, 1, go. We'll reset here. So, Cat plays Goofy, or sorry, Cat plays Max, that's already wrong. I play Goofy, and there is a difference between both characters, and I'll try to explain everything as we go along. So, timing will start on go. So, 3, 2, 1, go. So, the difference mainly between the two characters is that Max basically runs faster and Goofy is more powerful. So right off the start, you'll see basically every screen transition, Cat will try to get to the door quicker, and then every kind of like enemy for the most part that needs to be killed, Goofy will kill in the background. Or he also helps out by like grabbing things with like the hook or other stuff like that. So the really kind of cool thing about this is how the entire speedrun is routed. If you're playing this game casually, there's kind of like a weird death mechanic where normally if you die, you can not come back in solo player, but as long as you progress in the next screen, you can come back in 2-player. And it's really weird because later on that sets up for a lot of death abuse, but you can see here Cat will pick up a key. I have a grappling hook and Cat has a key, but in 2-player, both people share both items. So you can only have like one person with one item as long as the other person is alive. So later on, Cat will basically handle both items at the same time, and Goofy will intentionally die to kind of like item swap. So it's really cool and routed in that way. Something that we can talk about really briefly is the sheer amount of RNG in this run, unless your name is La Hulk. If you're Hulk, there's no RNG. He actually manipulated the run in solo from start to finish. So it removed like 2 minutes of RNG, but otherwise in co-op there's still a lot of RNG, and you'll see that in the first boss. It's kind of coming up here. And the first stage really isn't too terrible. It's really just the boss that kind of makes it a little bit inconsistent. And we'll see kind of what the boss decides to do here coming up here, because this is the boss there. So these pirates can throw bombs, they can also throw spikes, and they can throw nothing. Actually, they can just pop up and leave. So sometimes, that was actually really quick, dang. That was actually a pretty good Jester Hole. Unfortunately, they're named Jester Hole, so they don't really have the best name when it comes to bosses. So entering stage 2, this is where you'll start to see some of the death abuse for Goofy and some of the item management from Cat and Max. And it's also easy to say, like, we have a lot of puzzles, so each person basically takes like 50% of the puzzles, and I need to die one extra time. Sure. Okay, got it. Thank you. So you'll see here, I'll die in this screen again, and Cat will automatically grab the board and the hook. So she'll be able to use both the board and the hook. And the reason that I died in that screen is because when Goofy respawns here, he'll actually spawn at the beginning of the screen. So he can exit the transition there really quickly. And it's a little bit hard to commentate and focus on all the little things that happen in this game. So Act 2 is troublesome for a couple of rooms. One of the rooms that's coming up actually is this next one, not this one. And the pirates are actually very mean. This is another solo section where Cat just does it by herself. and you have to open up the door and you come back in so Goofy respawns over there. And luckily she found cherries because she has to pick up both of these items, but almost always the pirate will try to attack her. And from here, this room is probably one of the worst rooms in the entire game, weirdly. The pirates can just like kick the blocks wherever they want, but they actually behave this time, so that's good. Nice. I got exploded. Thank you. Good job, pirate. So this room is kind of rough too, depending... Okay, that's okay. Depending if that last pirate, because usually you can kill 2 with these barrels, but this pirate up there sometimes just stays alive and can throw swords and make Max's life miserable there. So coming up here we have a boss, almost. His name is Firebug, and he has basically one of 3 patterns. He can throw torches around, he can move around, or he can sit still and kind of like blow fire. Depending how he moves, I guess like both patterns are kind of beneficial, but you generally want him to stay still, blowing fire for a long time. And yeah, that pretty much summarizes Act 2. I don't know why there's pirates, that's a good question. So yeah, this is his kind of like blowing fire thing, so hopefully he does that again, because while he does that, he's immobile. Of course he's not going to do that though. He wants to move as much as possible. So entering Act 3, it is majorly death heavy for Goofy. Ironically, I don't want 3 lives here, and then that little gem thing was a life up. So the game is really trying to give me an extra life here. There's a ton of death abuse that happens later on in the level. And Goofy really dies a lot in this level more than any other level to kind of literally transfer items to Max in like the most efficient way possible. Sorry, this part's really tricky to kind of talk through as well. The cannons in this game are actually complete RNG in how fast that they shoot, so it's just another weird element of RNG. You'll see Cat will grab the board and immediately switch, so Goofy comes back so he can have the hook, and he grabs the hook so she can grab the board, and okay, hook that guy that normally moves but of course didn't. Dies twice here and then passes the hook back to Max, so this is basically like the entire level where you just literally pass items back and forth as Max does basically all the hard work. Most important screen in the game, Goofy can put his head there. And here we have to spell open. Again, we set up the death abuse to pass the key here. This pirate, the red one, can sometimes throw kind of like one of those vases in. And I'll just be quiet for a sec because this part can suck, trying to explain everything. But she wants to open the door without getting killed, and then she wants to grab this thing, and then she has to make the same trek backwards as Goofy grabs the key off to the side. So, there you go. Well done. And then Goofy dies here just to pass the key to Max. And I think that's it for Goofy's death. He doesn't die much more. As a heads up, if you want to chime in and say anything on the boss fight, you're more than welcome to. It's probably the slowest part of the speedrun. It's like 2 minutes almost, and it's horrible. So if you have anything you want to talk about, you're more than welcome. Or sorry, this isn't the boss. I take that back. In the next one, the next level, the skeleton boss is coming up, not the caterpillars. So this guy, he just lifted a pot. So yeah, the skeleton boss is kind of simple. They're also plagued with RNG. The red ones throw bones that basically land. The blue ones throw bones that bounce off of walls. And you want them to throw bones, obviously, consistently. But at the same time, sometimes like, you can see the blue guys just standing here doing nothing. Sometimes they jump around and do nothing, sometimes they just stand and do nothing. So there is an element of RNG with them even throwing the bones to begin with. After they hit a certain amount of health, their heads will come off and throw their heads. And we want to keep like 2 in reserve, so hopefully, because if they throw their heads rather, if they throw their heads, it takes 2 to cancel the animation basically. So he'll throw his head one more time, otherwise his head flies around forever, which is why we're just kind of concentrating there. And Max keeps passing back to Goofy because Goofy does more damage if he throws things. Max is faster, but as I said in the speedrun at the beginning, Goofy is technically stronger. So a lot of the bosses, Goofy takes priority in trying to attack and kill. So we have this horrible section coming up. This is a weird room where it repeats multiple times. Kat really wants like a heart here. Luckily she had a heart entering the room at the beginning. But for whatever reason, the developers are incredibly proud of that frog room because it comes back, you know, like one other time. And it's actually one of the worst rooms to get through because if you don't have a heart, you're basically stuck behind like 4 different enemies. And it's incredibly difficult to get through. So this room will have to kill the frog in a very specific way. And luckily she got a heart there too. And yeah, she's good. Act 4 has one of the more, I would say, harder puzzles, which is this room coming up if you're playing this casually. This one is definitely kind of tricky, I think, the first time that you go through this room. And again, this room also repeats, so I guess the developers are proud of that room too. Actually, I guess this room repeats as well. So I'm just proud of all these rooms. So Max here will attempt kind of like a weird partial little skip, so good job. She just basically walks across the train track, which is a little bit faster. Oh man, okay. He wanted to kill me. And this puzzle is probably one of the harder ones outside of the final puzzle in Act 5. So, whoop, and Goofy is celebrating. And lastly, this room is probably, arguably, the second worst room in the entire game. There is a huge amount of RNG, like this guy deciding to be a jerk. Hey, there you go. He rectified himself. And coming up is the Caterpillar boss, which is easily, again, the worst part of the speedrun. They probably lasted like 10 cycles too long. So again, this is the boss I was trying to say. If you have anything that you want to say, feel free to come into and say whatever you want to say. Because after we enter this door, it's about 2 minutes of a caterpillar fight that just does not end. And if not, we can still keep talking. But I mean, the basic idea behind this fight is you throw rocks into the caterpillar and then you do it for like 13 cycles or something. But it just moves very slowly. So again, if you have anything you want to say or promote, feel free to jump in and do that. Because we're just gonna stand here. I guess it's also worth noting, like, the rocks where they fall are completely random, so... And the only other weird thing that's noting is by the end of this fight, Goofy should have 0 lives entering Act 5. And then from there, again, if you have anything you want to say, there's really not much else to talk about this fight. It's probably the only really downside of Goof Troop. like to put into perspective like how long this boss fight is, some of the individual segments for the stages, oh dang, I don't know how you didn't get rocked there. But some of the individual segments for the stages alone are as long as this boss fight. So it lasts way too long in solo, and especially in co-op still. It goes slightly faster in co-op, but it's still like a really long boss fight for no reason. So we're entering Act 5. Act 5 is easily the hardest level in the entire game for execution, but also it has some of the worst screens for luck as well. So this guy... So right off the start, this guy can throw a barrel if we're not careful, and he did try, so there you go. Because Kat wants to kill me with the bomb, ironically, and she also needs a piece of fruit entering the next screen, so she'll have to open up some of these, open up some of these barrels for fruit. So the first room is kind of super annoying to deal with. This next room is arguably, if not the worst room in the entire game for RNG. These guys kind of like roll around and they kind of like react to your y-axis. So if you're not careful... Ooh, wow. That actually went moderately okay. If you're not careful, they just roll around forever and basically just don't end anything. Do you want to die here, or...? You can die in the next section or something right here. Sure.
Sure.
Okay, there you go, come back. So she intentionally tried to die. In the speedrun, Max actually is never supposed to die, but she has a sub-pixel skip coming up. Which is kind of scary in a marathon setting, because if you don't get it properly, you actually game over, and if you game over in this game, you get sent back to the title. So the sub-pixel skip is literally sub-pixel, like it requires a certain sub-pixel, and only Max can do it, actually Goofy cannot. So I'll pass the bell off to her pretty soon, coming up in the next room. And we'll also try for Goofy's most important tech, the butt scratches. It's a 4-frame window. We got one. Oh, we got 2. Can we get the trifecta? Aha, we only got 2. So first try, that's the breather, so good job. That's always kind of nerve-wracking on pace. So this room is also horrible, if you can't tell by all the arrows on this little platform. It's basically a bunch of random patterns, but the RNG changes so much in this game that it's actually incredible. And it's really hard. And we can show off Goofy's other important thing. He can hit himself in the head with a barrel here. That's how important Goofy is to obviously the speedrun as a whole. I might die here, so careful. I never know what that... Yeah, like that I meant. Okay. That bomb is basically random, so sometimes you can get the hook off without dying, sometimes you'll die. But I always try for it anyway. So, if this game wasn't random enough, we have probably the worst instance of RNG I've ever seen actually in a speedrun. We have a guy named Pete coming up, and he can be killed as low as 43 seconds, but he can also take as long as like 2.5 minutes to die. So it's completely always up to Pete and what he decides to do in this boss fight. Ideally you want him to throw bombs. You also ideally want him to obviously throw bombs in such a way that Goofy can grab them so he's like close, because he can spawn bombs far away. And you want him to actually spawn more than a lot of bombs, because he can spawn like up to 7. But sometimes he just does not do that. Sometimes he jumps around, sometimes he decides to shoot, sometimes he decides to spawn pirates that run around, and he can also do this hook thing. So far Pete's kind of being average. He's not being completely horrible, but now he's starting to be horrible. Now he's deciding to call his friends. Now he's deciding to make us wait for no reason. I don't know if I can grab that one. It's off screen. So in this situation, you just want Max to run around with the pirate that's left because he has a greater chance to spawn bombs as he's running back and forth. So that's what Cat's doing right now. Otherwise, okay, he's dead. So I'll say when time is. So we are time. And that's it. Really, really, really cool speedrun. Goes by way quicker than you think it would, considering it's like 20 minutes or so. And yeah, we really enjoy this one, and hopefully more people pick it up. Very fun speedrun. Again, if you have a friend or something, you can rope into it.
Definitely fun. That was a blast to watch. I'm gonna have to pick that one up for sure.
There you go. You and Strizer can do it next year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the GOC powwow this weekend will all just be playing Goof Troop.
There you go. Hopefully it happens.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, don't go anywhere, folks. We will be right back with Junkyard Dave yet again and another great game. So stay tuned.